Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and selamat sejahtera. Good morning, everyone. So today I'm going to discuss a new topic of OPM538. So the topic will be occupational hygiene and disease. Hold on, I'm going to share my screen. So we're going to cover two topics. First is occupational health and hygiene. Another one is fire safety management. Right, so among the content that we're going to discuss is first importance of occupational health and hygiene, and occupational health, illness and diseases, stress management, environmental work hazards, chemical, physical, biological, and economics, and that we're going to look into occupational health programs. The next topic will be going to talk about fire fire safety management. Right, so let's have a look at what is the industrial hygiene. So I hope you are not confused with so many terms and detail out of the occupational safety and health. So basically, in industrial hygiene, we're talking about concern with predicting, recognizing, assessing, controlling, and preventing workplace environmental stresses that can cause sickness or serious discomfort to workers. Okay, so what is the environment stressor? Is actually any factor that can cause enough discomfort to result in lost time or illness. Okay, it includes gases, fumes, vapor, dust, mists, noise, and radiation. So why is it important? The importance of understanding about occupational health and hygiene is first, we like to prevent any exposure or contact with any health hazards and control of health risks in the workplace environment. And we also like to address this source of problems by identifying the hazard, and then we propose the methods of contact, okay, in case that we have to contact with all those source of hazards, and also how to prevent or minimize the exposure and or its effects. Okay, now before we begin, let's have a look the recent published statistics with regards to occupational poisoning and diseases statistics. So DOSH have published data from 2005 up to 2019. So as we can see there are a sharp increase in terms of case reported and confirmed case, right? So in 2005, we only have only 319 of case reported, no, sorry, of case confirmed, and only 319 case confirmed. And then it goes sideways for about a few years until 2009. And starting from 2010, there are spike in the report of cases, and suddenly after that we can see it increase quite sharp, starting from 2011 to 2019. Okay, so whatever happened along that years, I'm sure there is a reason behind that. For example, probably there are huge advancement in technology, but at the same time the awareness or the concern among the manufacturers are not that up to standard or level with regards to poisoning uh, or any hazards that can cause illness, right, to people. And basically, Dodge have set up this master plan whereby they targeted that in 2030 it should be 30% increasing in due to the 30% increase in occupational poisoning and diseases reporting by the year 2020. Okay, as you can see there are between 2018 to 2019, the figure is 65%. So they would like to reduce that to increase, but reduce to 30% lah. Okay, this might sound a bit strange, as I think we should target the zero um, case of poisoning or diseases. But yeah, as we can see that due to the increase from of about 65%, I think at least if they can cut half of that figure, should be okay lah for 2020. And this is also the statistic by states. Okay, so we can see Penang is the highest contributors to confirm and reported case of disease and poisoning. Okay, so as you can see in the smaller box there, we have some sort of definition whereby it is the by the Protocol 2002, by according to the 1981 Occupational Safety and Health Convention by the ILO, or International Labour Organization, whereby any disease contracted as a result of an exposure to risk factors arising from work activity. So this is the figure, and you can see that Penang is the highest contributor with total numbers of 2,048 cases reported, while the lowest will be in Perlis, which only have about 22 reported case and 19 case confirmed. So as you can see, the statistic at the lower is about the statistic by the type of diseases. So these are among the diseases that we like to have a look into details about it. But let's have a look at the figures that are um, now what is happening or reported in Malaysia. So occupational noise related hearing disorders. We're going to look also into the lung disorders, skin disorders, musculoskeletal disorders, psychosocial problem, poisoning, disease by physical agent, disease caused by biological agent, cancer, other occupational disease, and also non-occupational disease. Right. Okay, so first part, we're going to look into the stress and safety. Okay, so what is workplace stress? So it is defined as the emotion which are affected in the workplace due to the social, occupational, environmental, and psychosocial factors, which is perceived as threats to a person. So stress is the reaction of the human body to the stimuli, and then the amount of stress that a person felt will depend as much as of the individual's ability on how they deal with the external stimuli as the relative intensity of the stimuli. And usually managers tend to view stress as an individual problem, which is tied to the personality and emotional makeup of the employee. Okay, so the other way around, employees pula dia view stress as a problem which is induced by poor supervision, unrealistic expectations of their employer, and also any other shortcomings from the management. So they do different point of view, and both basically contradicting each other and blaming each other basically. Right. And workplace stress usually involves the emotional state which results from the perceived difference between the level of occupational demand and the person's ability to cope with this demand. So this is considered a subjective state. Okay, yeah, when we are in uh, your workplace, so when your expectation of how your work you should receive are not parallel or have a contradicting expectation, So that imbalance will definitely cause an emotional state, okay, which basically contradict to what you expect lah, right? So it will cause a person to be stressed due to whether they are overworked, burnout, or frustration due to um, the expected amount of work, probably less or probably more. So the relation between job demands and the worker's ability to meet those demands further influence workplace stress. So this is the sources of workplace stress. Okay, which is one we're looking here is the on-the-job stress, which usually involve physical working conditions, whether it's overload or not. And usually, when you are overloaded, you're going to have a physical stress lah. The next is role ambiguity or conflict. Okay, whereby you are given a job description, but it's not clear on uh, the job description are ambiguous or not clear, and also lack of feedback, whereby you do your work, but your supervisors do not give feedback to you. Okay, the next is personality or personal and family problems. Okay, that's common in our society, perhaps. And the job which is perceived as being too complex. Okay, that will be a person who think that his work or her work as being too complex. It might be not that complex, but uh, this person perceive it as too complex. And then repetitive and monotonous work, that will also contribute to the stress in the workplace, especially in manufacturing where they need to do a routine of, let's say, as a production department, okay, or at packaging department where their movement is limited to certain activities. So that is can actually cause stress of person. And then next, the control of employees over their job responsibilities, which mean for a worker, to what extent do they have freedom or flexibility of control about their job responsibilities. So definitely, if they are being too controlled, or if they don't have control, or they don't have the freedom to make decision about what they're going to do, that will definitely cause stress to them. And being responsible for work without being in control of it. Okay, so it's pretty much relatable to the previous points which we have discussed. Next is the human reactions to the stress. Some human reaction to stress include subjective or emotional, so they can be causing them to develop anxiety, and they can also aggression. Another one is the reaction could be in guilt, right? So next is much something more into the behavioral, which mean it can actually cause when people are too stressed, the reaction will form in the context of behavior. For example, person when they are too stressed, they are prone to accident, or they are start to tremble, their hands start to shake. The next is cognitive. When a person when they are too stressed, they start to develop the disability or inability to concentrate to their work, and sometimes make wrong decisions. Next is physiological, which means whatever um, stress that happened to them will basically cause their heart to be more um, uh, pressure are not at a normal level, a higher or probably lower blood pressure. And next is when people are too stressed, it can result to the organizational outcome, where we can see absenteeism, or probably productivity which is deteriorating, right? The next is the three stages of human stress response. First is alarm, next is resistance, and another one is exhaustion. So for alarm, it's characterized by low sweating and increased heart rate, which prepares the body for whatever action is necessary. Okay. Next is at the level of resistance. Is alarm system dissipate and the body develops a limit adaptation to the stress. And the next is level of exhaustion, whereby at this level they start to fail to adapt to continuous stress, as psychosomatic diseases such as gastric ulcers, colitis, rashes, and autoimmune may begin. So there will be PPR. Sometimes when we see or heard a few cases of people around us, they say that they are when they are too stressed. Sometimes their skin, they can see it on the skin, on their face, right? Start to from being stressed to physical issues. Yeah, so it's not an it's definitely a serious issues that need to be dealt, and something which is a concern of the OSHA. Right? So now let's move on. Let's look at these hazards in the workplace. So basically, there are environmental stresses on which industrial hygiene focuses. So they are focusing to the chemical hazard. So chemical hazard include the mists, vapors, gases, dust, and fumes. Right? That's a form of chemical hazards. Next is physical hazards, which include noise, vibration, temperature extremes, and excessive radiation. Next is biological hazards, which come in the form of molds, fungi, ataupun fungus, bacteria, and insects, uh, food waste, and also water. And next is economic hazards, which relate to workplace design and condition. So these are one few example of chemical hazards. So it includes dust, okay, about fumes, smoke, aerosols, mists, gases, and vapors. Let's have a look in detail. So all of the first one is the airborne contaminants. So gases. So basically, there are various types of solid particles which produce when a given type of organic or inorganic material is scrapped, sawed, ground, drilled, handled, heated, crushed, and or otherwise deformed. Yeah, when we are dealing with some materials, when we scrap them, when we saw them, when we do ground drill, it can cause particles, small but solid particles. And then what will happen is that the degree it can cause a hazard. Lah. You know, imagine you inhale dust from sawing of blocks, for example, or if you work at the construction area which have dust from the concrete, okay, those particles are very dangerous to your lungs lah. So degree of hazard depends on parent material toxicity. So each material have different level of toxicity, and also it depends on the size and the concentration level of particles. Okay, like sometimes although it's in solid form, but the toxicity of that particular substance are not that high, so it doesn't cause any issue to your body. And if your body can cope with that level, there's no problem. So it depends really on your personal your level of body on how it can tolerate to certain particles or poison. or hazards, and then that will affect on how person reaction lah. So the most common causes of fumes are welding. Okay, when you do welding, the fumes that are caused uh, can probably be hazard. Heat treating and metallizing, which involve the interaction of intense heat with a parent material. So heat volatilizes portion of the parent material, which then condenses as it becomes in contact with cool air. And the result of this formation of tiny particles that can be inhaled, so that is in form of fumes. Okay, so these two among the airborne contaminants. Another airborne contaminants can be from smoke, which is a result of incomplete combustion of carbonaceous materials and leaving tiny soot or carbon particles remain in the air, and these can be inhaled. Next is aerosols, are liquid or solid particles which is so small that they can remain suspended in the air long enough to be transported over distance, and yeah, aerosols can also be inhaled. Another airborne contaminants include mists. Okay, mists ni apa? Tiny liquid droplets suspended in the air. It can be formed in two ways. So first one is when vapor return to a liquid state through condensation. Okay, macam asap vapor, vape kan, asap kan. So dia bila dia turn to liquid state, dia boleh jadi mist lah. So when we hang out at normal mamak store, when we saw the fan which produce mists, so those are a small, very liquid droplets, which can be um, uh, inhaled or one of the airborne contaminants. So next is gases, which are formless liquids, particularly hazardous when they feel a confined and also unventilated space. And these will be the common sources is coming from welding and the exhaust of internal combustion engines. Okay, certain materials that are solid or liquid at room temperature and at normal pressure turn to vapors when heated or exposed to the abnormal pressure. And evaporation is the most common process by which liquid is transformed into a vapor. Now let's look at the toxic substances. So apa tu? Um, it is one that has negative effect on the health of a person or animal. Toxic effect of are a function uh, several factors which include properties of substance and route of entry, amount of the dose, and the level of exposure, resistance of individual to the substance. So ni sama lah macam mana toxic going to effect and function pada person, macam tadi contoh-contoh yang lain, also depending on these three main things lah, factors lah. So response can vary widely and might be as little as coughing or mild respiratory irritation, and also can be as serious as having loss of consciousness and also fatality. So after we have understand about the what are the example of airborne contaminants, now let's have a look at the how it can actually enter a person's body. First is through injection, skin absorption, and inhalation. So first, let's have a look at inhalation, which means you inhale like sedut. So airborne toxic substances such as gases, vapors, dust, smoke, fumes, aerosols, and mists definitely are inhalable, boleh disedut, and it can pass through your nose, throat, bronchial tubes, and lungs to last kali masuk dalam your bloodstream, dalam saluran darah. So amount inhaled is going to depend on the concentration of the substance. Sejauh mana kelikatan kandungan substance atau bahan bahaya ni, dan the duration, berapa lama pula kita expose or breathe the toxic lah. Inhalation is particularly important due to the rapidity which the toxic material can be absorbed in the lungs. Lepas masuk dalam paru-paru, dia akan distribute to bloodstream lah. Lepas tu dia pergi ke otak pula. So inhalation is the major route of entry for hazardous. Kebanyakan chemical ni kita banyak tersedut lah. Contoh dulu saya, when I was in my previous work, I've heard a story about one of my lepas punya pekerja yang ada kat situ. Dia bercerita kawan dia tu, when he pick up a bag of substance tu habuk dalam bentuk macam tepung yang banyak, tapi sebenarnya dia beracun. So dia, kepala dia termasuk dalam bekas tu. Macam mana tak boleh termasuk muka macam tu. And then the next day dia vomit blood so it's very dangerous. Maknanya tersedut And then absorption, serap The second most common route of entry in this setting is absorption. So melalui kulit. Masuk kulit, masuk ke bloodstream. Selalunya macam mana? Unprotected cuts, maknanya kalau ada luka tu, luka kita yang tak ditutup. Dan sores, maknanya kalau ada bengkak ke. And abrasion ni maknanya luka lah. Facilitate the process. Tiga-tiga perkara ni akan mencepatkan proses berlakunya penyerapan toxic materials into our body. But healthy skin pun boleh juga absorb. Yang tadi tiga tu tak sihat lah kulitnya, maknanya kulit koyak lah, kulit ada saluran darah terbuka Dan juga skin yang sihat pun boleh absorb juga certain chemical, dia boleh masuk melalui kulit. Tak kira kulit tu luka atau tidak. And body parts differ in absorption capabilities. Lain bahagian badan, lain lah. Contohnya the forearms. Forearm mana dahi. Dahi have a low absorption and potential than the scalp and forehead. So maknanya ialah ada hikmah lah kenapa kita pakai kopiah ke pakai tudung kan, ataupun pakai topi di tempat kerja. Sebab apa scalp dan forehead ni forearms dengan forehead. Forearms apa? Bahagian tangan lah. Forehead ni dahi. So dahi dengan scalp ni lebih mudah menyerap bahan toksik. Next is ingestion. An ingested substance is swallowed, telan and moved through the stomach into the intestine and from there to the bloodstream. Apa kita makan, proses dalam perut, dalam usus tu dia distribute dalam darah lah. Jadi cara bila kita makan benda beracun sama lah. Dulu saya ingat kerja di Touring Electronics. Saya pernah handle products at the packaging dan terlupa nak basuh tangan, pergi makan kan. So bahaya lepas makan tu macam-macam lah sakit perut And then toxic agents can enter the body when accidentally consumed by workers eating lunch or snack. Kadang sikit je, kadang kita ingat bersih kan, tengok macam tak ada apa, tak basuh tak apa, padahal benda tu sangat-sangat high toxicity lah. Itu pula dimakan. Masih baik sikit, kalau makan banyak terkotor lagi tangannya tu, lagilah dahsyat. So it is critical to confine eating and drinking to sanitary areas away from the work site and ensure that workers all practice a very good personal hygiene. Contohnya, basuh tangan thoroughly before eating or drinking. Terusnya is through injection. So injection is introduction of substance into the body by way of needle and syringe, compressed air, high pressure, hydraulic leaks, and etc. And not often a route of entry for toxic substance in workplace. Unless mungkin dekat klinik ke mana ke kan, logik lah kan, ada banyak jarum kan. Ni kalau kat kilang yang tak ada buat jarum pun, tiba-tiba nak terkena eject macam tak kena lah. Tapi yelah, depends on what kind of manufacturing. But as mentioned here, it's not often the route of entry for toxic substance. Yelah, mana ada orang masuk bahan toksik ke dalam picagari, as usually tak adalah syarikat menggunakan picagari untuk bekerja lah. So apa efek dia? Satu, depend ataupun it vary, beza secara besar, as do these substances themselves, but all can be categorized as either acute or chronic. So acute effect and exposure involve sudden dose of a highly concentrated substances. The sudden severe typically involve just one incident. It can cause immediate health problems and not the result of accumulation over time. Okay, ada yang toksik itu sekali dah terus ada efek lah. Okay, tak payah tunggu lama-lama. Macam if you are sitting in a place where there are printers, okay, printers ni dalam tu carbon kan. Okay, for accumulated over time, it can cause cancer lah. Kalau duduk dekat dengan printer, bahaya, so jauhkan. So chronic effects exposure involve limited continuous exposure over time and health problem develop slowly. Progressive accumulation of toxic substances in the body and progressive worsening of associated health problems and little or no awareness of exposure on the part of affected workers. Yang berlaku ialah part of the liver's function is to collect toxic substance. Jadi itulah kita punya liver ni, dia filter kan. That's why, but dah lama sangat, it will convert them to non-toxic and send them to the kidney pula, and to eliminate via the urine. So bila overdose, liver dia tak boleh handle, toxic move to other organs pula, okay, which produce various effects. These are the selected substances and the organs that can actually endanger the most. Maknanya lain bahagian kimia apa dan apa yang akan rosak lah, paling banyak mudah rosak. Bagi contoh dalam blood, darah so darah kita kalau banyak dia kandungan benzin, carbon monoxide, arsenic, aniline and toluene, we can actually endanger your system of blood. Next is kidneys. Kalau ada bahan mercury atau chloroform, dia mudah merosakkan kita punya kidneys. Heart, aniline. Brain, kalau ada lead, mercury, benzene, manganese and also acetaldehyde, dia akan menyebabkan masalah, mudah menyebabkan brain tu rosak. Seterusnya ialah ais, mata. Antara bahan yang mudah merosakkan mata ialah cresol, acrolein, benzyl chloride and butyl alcohol. Next is skin. Yang tak boleh dengan dia ialah nickel, phenol and trichloroethylene. Payah benar nak sebut, trichloroethylene. Kurang macam tu lah bunyi ya. And then lungs, antaranya ialah asbestos, chromium, hydrogen sulfide, mica and nitrogen dioxide. And liver, dia kalah pada chloroform, carbon tetrachloride and also toluene. Next is physical hazard. Apa itu physical hazard? Antaranya ialah noise. Noise is sound that is unwanted and exceed safe limits and can cause problems ranging from annoyance to hearing loss. So OSHA mandates that an employee exposure should be limited to 85 dB atau decibels, which is calculated as an 8-hour and time-weighted average. And temperature control pula ada physical hazard, and is the most basic way to eliminate environmental hazards. The people function efficiently in a very narrow body temperature range, and fluctuation in temperature exceeding about 2 degree Fahrenheit below or 3 degree Fahrenheit above normal temperature impair performance markedly. And if this 5 degree range lebih, dia akan menyebabkan masalah kesihatan lah. Seterusnya adalah radiation. Okay, radiation hazard are increasingly prevalent dalam keadaan sekarang lah. TV, laptop, handphone sebagainya. So there are 5 kinds of ionizing radiation: alpha, beta, X-ray, gamma, dan neutron. Dan alpha radiation dia yang paling tak banyak tembus, which makes dia untuk alpha radiation ni agak mudah lah. So the other are more difficult to shoot against. Yang lain ni beta, X-ray semua ni susah nak buat perlindungan lah. Mudah terradiasi. So the greatest risk of non-ionizing radiation in the modern workplace comes from lasers. Is pain and congestion in the ears. So from inability to ventilate the middle ear properly during compression and decompression, workers subjected to increased air pressure can suffer temporary or permanent hearing loss. Ni kalau orang kerja offshore dia tahu lah. Ada yang buat deep sea diving atau orang yang selalu pergi deep sea diving, tak deep sea pun bila kita turun beberapa meter kedalaman, it will actually you can hear the pressure in your ears. And then apatah lagi orang yang go beyond ataupun menyelam laut dalam untuk buat offshore punya maintenance sebagainya, when they come up to the surface, cara nak naik pun unik, then you need to be decompressed in the compressed room. Then if you fail to do so, you can actually burst your ear out lah. So effect of reduced pressure are much the same as effect of decompression from high pressure. Maknanya kalau you dah tu compress bila dalam air keluar tu, sama juga dia punya effect. If pressure is reduced too rapid, dia masalah dia tak boleh rapid, decompression, sickness and ear disturbances similar to the diverse condition can result. Okay, seterusnya ialah biological hazard. Okay, ini sekarang ni lagi lah bab biological ni, COVID-19 sebagainya, itu juga adalah biological hazard lah. So kalau dulu yang famous antaranya ialah Legionnaires disease. Okay, that is a result from biological hazard. Sekarang ni tak payah pening-pening awak pening COVID-19, as we can see pun that is also biological lah. So kalau dalam kes Legionnaire ni, it's first appeared at an American Legion Convention, di mana partisipan yang ada dalam convention tersebut sakit dan meninggal dunia. So activation of biological agent that cause Legionnaire disease, which include hepatitis B and HIV. So high risk industry like yang terlibat ialah agriculture, healthcare, kat hospital kan, ataupun farmasi sebagainya, biotechnology, research and clinical labs. Kadang orang yang biasa kerja lab-lab ni yang bermain dengan kuman-kuman mudahlah terdedah kalau walaupun kadang you have already fulfill all the SOPs sebagainya pun terkena juga kan. No threshold exposure limit and can exist in an environment affected and influenced by biological competition. Ini example of disease that we basically have seen even worse lah dalam konteks COVID-19 contohnya. So the cause was eventually traced back to bacteria that grew in the cooling air moving system serving the convention center, and the bacteria may still be named as Legionella. So habis sebab tu, next part we will look into the economic hazards, musculoskeletal disorder and cumulative trauma disorders. So first kali ialah tentang economic, which is defined as a multidisciplinary science that seeks to conform the workplace and all the physiological aspect to the worker. So conform maksudnya would like to comply, to follow the whatever is suitable for workplace use. Okay, maksudlah economic, but when you do work, you must sit properly and make sure that your body are not stressed with the work. So dia engineering punya hal juga lah ya, cara design kerusi, what will be the best design for workplace environment. So ergonomics involve following, which is using special design and evaluation techniques to make tasks, objects, and environments more compatible with human abilities and limitation. Lah, human ni kita bayangkan kalau kerja dah macam senam aerobik, dah macam apa, buat akrobatik kan. So dia kena sesuai dengan keadaan, dengan fizikal tubuh badan dan limitation of human punya movement lah. Kalau badan nak pusing, tak boleh lah pusing habis badan kan, nak untuk rotate. So you need to have a using special design and evaluation. So economic evolve to seek how you can improve productivity and quality by reducing workplace stresses, reducing the risk of injuries and illness, and increasing efficiency. So maknanya dengan adanya economics, you can be more productive dalam doing your work, and eliminate as much as possible things that can stop you from doing your work. So economic hazard are conditions that require unnatural postures. Okay, bila dia hazard dalam bentuk economic, maknanya orang bekerja tapi kerja dalam keadaan yang bukan what a person body can do lah. Okay, jadi posturenya dianggap sebagai unnatural ataupun tidak normal. Dan sama juga dengan movement yang tak natural. Contoh tangan boleh bergerak, kita boleh pusing. Kalau pusing sampai 30 atau 360 darjah pun, that's not suitable lah. So the human body can endure limited amounts of unnatural posture. Maknanya boleh juga kita bergerak, tapi amountnya sikit lah, tak boleh lah all the time tangan tu terkepak belakang nak bekerja kan. So repeated exposure to such condition can lead to physical stress and injury. Sama juga kalau kita duduk, kalau you perasan kalau you use apa nama, band handband, feet atau feet watch kan, sometimes they remind you to stand up and do stretches. So those are actually the limitation of how long a person can sit down and do work all the time. Okay, ni pun dah start jam ni macam nak bunyi suruh gerak kan, jadi you pun boleh lah gerak-gerak sikit. So now let's have a look at what are the benefits of economics. So banyak lah benefit ni, antaranya make you health better, and of course you like to, when you have better safety of workers pun better, having a high moral throughout the workplace. Maknanya ada moral yang baik lah, maknanya when you know your organisation are concerned about your health, beri you kursi yang bagus untuk bekerja, bagi kursi yang mahal untuk bekerja. Ada yang kan syarikat yang bagus dibagilah secret lab ke, bagi paling common pun bagi Thomas ke untuk kursi buat kerja kan. Ini saya tak pakai kursi, just sitting on floor. So better improve quality, improve productivity, improve competitiveness, decrease absenteeism and turnover, and fewer workplace injuries and health problems. So as we can see tadi, statistik tadi tu macam-macam hal, mungkin salah satunya ialah due to economics lah, yang orang Melayu mengadu sleep day sebagainya kan. So human factors and safety. The sign of human factors can help reduce both product and workplace hazard. So a hazard can be eliminated by design. So have an intelligent design, we can reduce the errors by human and provide a better control that are simple to understand and operate. Maknanya buat satu, fikirkan, brainstorm something which do the design that can eliminate your hazards. Next is provision and location of safety devices. By design and location of safety devices such as emergency cut-off switches. So these all are features that can reduce human error on the job and correspondingly reducing the chances of an accident. Maknanya you buat satu lokasi dan safety device yang dapat beri perlindungan, proof from a person to make mistake. So provision of warning devices, for example color, special color, location yang baik, maknanya tak letak tempat yang mudah orang nak tersentuh, tak asingkan sikit ke kan. Maknanya if that pushing button can cause easy for people to make accident. So isolate the buttons lah. Pitch and volume of warning signals, maknanya bila tekan ada bunyi dan sebagainya. Alarm alert to person who are doing the job by or dealing with the machine. And design caution markings on gauges and video displays are important factors in reducing human error. Next is establishment of procedures and give training, of course. Okay. So when hazard cannot be realistically designed out of the system, procedures for hazard reduction must be established. Kalau dah nak design pun tak boleh, okay, you must put administrative procedures for hazard reduction must be established, dan juga give training to those procedures must be provided. Alright, now apa factors associated with physical stress? So there are basically 8 variables which can influence the amount of physical stress experienced on the job, which include some of you sitting atau standing. What are the job suitable for sitting? What are the job suitable for standing? Some job when you do in stand mode lebih baik, lebih produktif, lebih selamat badan, and most of the job probably dalam keadaan sitting lah. Next is stationary versus movable automobile. Sama ada bila you bekerja secara duduk diam ataupun bergerak, yang mana satu lebih memberi physical stress. So next is large demand for strength power versus small demand for strength power. So ini adalah good horizontal work area, sama ada menegak ataupun melintang lah. Okay. Good vertical, sama dua perkara yang sama. Non-repetitive motion versus repetitive motion, but most of the time when you do things in manufacturing, for example, they do have repetitive motion. Then the next is the low surface versus high surface contact, and also no negative environmental factors versus negative environmental factors. Negative environmental ni maksudnya suasana yang tak elok lah, contohnya bangunan buruk, bangunan lama, lepas tu lighting rendah, tu those are environmental elements lah. Environmental tu bukan yang ada pokok-pokok tu yang green tak green, tu salah satu, but merujuk pada suasana keadaan kerja lah. So how to solve ergonomic problems? So back, neck, shoulder and lower leg pain are often associated with seated repetitive work on light parts, and may be necessary to modify the job on the workstation. One of the way, rotate between one or more different jobs. Maknanya cara kedua ialah kalau seorang ni asyik duduk, seorang ni asyik berdiri, so dulu ni rotate lah. Kejap kau duduk, kejap kau diri. So assisted work with larger parts involve interacting with objects that may be too large to manipulate manually, associated with assembly and welding jobs. So problem which are typically related to posture, illumination, reach and lifting. So definitely you can use all the time, make sure that you have material handling equipment or technology which you can use for lifting activities, and position to work for easy access that does not require bending, twisting and reaching. So letak di a special racking and position them in a place which doesn't use extreme movement of people. So use good lighting and use a chair or table or surfaces which are adjustable. Next, seated control work involves sitting in one location and using wheels, lever, knobs, handles and buttons to control a process, system or equipment. So use an adjustable swivel chair, kursi yang gerak tu, with inflatable back and seat support, and keep both feet on the floor. So provide a comfortable, convenient location for controls. And most jobs performed while standing do not involve a great deal of repetitive motion, but do involve handling medium to heavy materials. And physical stress include leg, arm, and back strains, and occasionally side strains occur when bending ataupun twisting. And ergonomic strategies for improving work condition, ialah kita buat adjustment of machine, main machine yang ada di depan tu sama ada nak rendah ke ataupun lebih tinggi. So what are the best position, itu engineering punya activities lah. So that is how you solve ergonomics problem. Make sure there is a recess at the bottom for feet, ada tempat rehat kaki to allow operator to stand close to the machine tanpa bending. Machines with easily accessible controls with comfortable reach zone for operators, and also have the free spaces around the machine so that people can move material in and out, and for ease of movement in servicing the machines. Next, how to solve ergonomic problem is to use hand tools, which introduce a variety of potential hazard indigenous to their use. Antaranya ialah CTS ataupun carpal tunnel syndrome and muscle strains of the lower arm, hands, and your pergelangan tangan. Kadang dia buat kerja banyak sangat kan, so tangan tu jadi carpal tunnel lah, ada rasa muscle strain, okay, di bawah lower arm, tangan, sepuluh tangan dan juga pergelangan tangan. So certain tools are designed to keep your hands always in your rest position. Contoh macam mouse kita yang ada bonggol sikit kan, bantal kan, so that is to help keep hand in the rest position. And select tools which have which are thick, biar tebal sikit dan ada dentin, handle ni lah. Enhance gripping surface such as knurling atau feeling, maknanya dia ada getah ataupun dia ada bunga untuk memudahkan your handling atau pegang yang grip yang bagus. So eliminate twisting by selecting tools which are designed so the direction, movement or function is the same as the direction in which force is applied, or by using technology. Yang mana if you use a tools, panah, pelayar contohnya, make sure that you tak pusing tangan habis-habis lah, which cause your hand to be not ergonomically working. So if you certain tools kadang you gerak satu kali je dia dah boleh pusing kan, pelayar contohnya, you just tak payah nak pusing-pusing tangan jauh-jauh, that can help you to reduce risk of economics problem. And select tools which handles made of hard, non-permeable, that will absorb toxic liquid harmful to skin. So ada je certain handles ni dia mungkin materials tu dia mudah ada something toxic dan masuk ke tangan orang. So make sure it's clean from that lah. The last one is the pictures of how the best settings for economics position. So contohnya head position directly over shoulders without straining back and arms, and neck and shoulders tak bongkok, relax. To back upright and incline slightly forward from the hips and maintain the same spine curve back as when standing, maknanya tegak macam gigi. Elbows kalau boleh 70 ke 135 angle. Pergelangan tangan relax dan straight, not angle up or down, kena straight lah. And place slightly lower than hips to lutut ya. And chair slope slightly forward, so knees are in the correct position. And then untuk positioning of your screen, biarlah position at the eye level ataupun slightly lower. Ini depend juga on your preferences lah. Keyboard place flat close to elbow level. Work surface position at height, okay, tinggi ada sesuai dengan bila kita duduk, which is level of elbow tu. And then feet planted firmly on the floor. At a foot rest may be needed, maknanya letak untuk rehat kaki for shorter people or high work surfaces. Okay, so that's the end of topic 5 about the health and safety hygiene. So with that, this is the part 1 of the lecture. We'll continue next with the fire management.